Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of RMS Hospitality Learning Labs. Really happy to kick off this very sunny in Europe this afternoon with you. We have some special guests, as always the best content and the best presenters. So here with me this week, as a special treat, we have Dominika Hroncova, who is General Manager of Nox Holiday Homes. And you'll see, I think I pronounced it well. But
very well.
And then José Marcos, who is Account Executive at Breezeway. And we are here to talk about operations. So lots to talk about. But before we get into this, I will ask Dominika first, if you can give us an intro of you, your role, and obviously Nox Holiday Home.
Hello, everybody. I'm Dominika. I'm the General Manager of Nox Holiday Homes. I lead the overall operation strategy and growth of the portfolio with a very strong focus on building structured and scalable systems behind the business. At Nox, we manage a growing portfolio of short-term rental properties, and our focus is on transforming them into high-performing and well-operated assets, not just from the guest experience point of view, but also from operationally and commercially. So big part of my role has been moving the company from reactive operations to more of a system-driven, scalable model. That's how I would sum it up.
Yep, and this is exactly what we're going to talk about in a short while. And before we jump into that, I will pass the microphone to Maria, who can introduce herself and Breezeway.
Thank you so much. So super excited to be here today, share this time with you two. So I'm Maria, Account Executive at Breezeway. For those who don't know, Breezeway is the leading smart operations and guest experience platform that helps short-term rentals operators automate everything from cleaning and maintenance to inspections, guest readiness, and guest satisfaction. So operations, my favorite topic today. Super excited to talk about it.
Perfect. So thank you so much to both my guests. We're going to get started with, as usual, a little question. And then before, as a reminder, all questions welcome. Put them in the Q&A button. You should see that at the top of your screen, top right. And if we have time at the end, we shall look at them. I will start off then with a question around operations and property care. Obviously, we know Dominika uses a property care platform, but wanted to know whether you guys do. So I will start a little poll. You should see at the top of your screen an interaction, like a little lightning bolt, and you should be able to see the poll in here. So we'll leave that going. But while this is going, I guess I will start asking, there's some people who are using it, which is brilliant. And I will start asking you, Dominika, to paint us a picture of what operations at Nox looked like before you obviously decided to make a change and decided to bring on Breezeway. So what was your typical day, and what made you finally say that this is no longer working for us?
So before we made the shift, operations at Nox were very reactive. The typical day meant jumping between WhatsApp messages, WhatsApp groups, spreadsheets, constant follow-ups, not just to make sure that things were happening. So we were growing, but we were not growing in a structured way, and we heavily relied on people remembering the tasks rather than systems ensuring they were completed. The breaking point came when the volume increased and things started slipping, not because the team wasn't capable, but because the tools weren't supporting them anymore. And it wasn't just day-to-day operations. It was even onboarding new properties has become very complex, at multiple stages of stakeholders involved, from procurement to operations to owners. Managing that across the disconnected tools was simply not sustainable. So then when I realized that if we want to scale properly, we need systems that work for us, not against us, basically.
That's that is indeed a good resolution, a system that works for you. And I guess this is pretty much a question for me in marketing, and I've not run a property before, but when we talk about operation, my mind goes straight to sort of housekeeping and maintenance. Is that kind of what you had in mind originally? Is that what you refer to when you mean to operation, or is it a bit more than just housekeeping and maintenance?
No, it's not just housekeeping and maintenance. We use it quite deeply. We don't just use it to day-to-day operations, right? As you would say, it's a housekeeping, maintenance, and inspections, right? We use it more as a central system across multiple parts of the business, right? Of course, it covers the core operations, but also beyond that, we have integrated it into our onboarding processes as well. We have managed where we manage different stages of stakeholders, and when bringing the property live. So we'll also use it for like an internal coordination between the teams, for example, procurement and operations, right? Especially when it comes to setting up the units and and managing the requirements, and on top of it, we use it also for stock and storage management, lost and found processes, and even maintenance approvals from the owners, which has been a very significant change for us, how we manage all of these internal processes. So I would say today it's more of a ecosystem that connects all of these parts of the business together.
Perfect. Thank you. And I'm going to throw a question to you, Maria. So obviously at Breezeway, you are account exec for Europe. So I'm guessing you spend a lot of time with European clients and understanding their operations. So what are, I guess, the most common warning signs that a team has sort of outgrown their tool? And what do they tell you, basically? What do you see typically?
So of course, like I see all the time this across like property managers I speak within EMEA, and it's rarely one big breaking point. It's usually a build up of small frictions that start impacting the day-to-day. So one of the clearest signs, well, actually Dominika mentioned a lot of them, but like one of the clearest ones is what I call the timing trap. So where one delay creates a domino effect. So a late checkout leads to a late clean, then a late inspection, and then suddenly you have a delayed check-in and unhappy guest. And another big one is being reactive instead of proactive. So without a system flagging issues before check-in, teams are constantly firefighting, and every stay starts to feel a bit a gamble. Then, of course, like there is a communication chaos. Teams are juggling between WhatsApp messages, calls, text, Excel, and one missed or misread message can cost hours and sometimes even a refund. Then we also see operators that are using platforms but are disconnected platforms, so which usually creates more manual work instead of less, because nothing really is talking to each other. So you have to duplicate work. And then this leads into an information silos. So where, for example, the cleaner doesn't know that the guest is checking out late, or the inspector doesn't know that the clean is finished. And all of this ultimately results into a lack of visibility. So managers don't have a clear real-time view of what's happening. So they are guessing instead of knowing, and guests can really feel that. So I'd say that most of the operators recognize these challenges when they hear them, so they feel familiar with them, but they're just not used to working, but they are so used actually to working with them that they don't realize it's a tooling issue.
That is true. And frankly, I probably wouldn't either, because these probably are not that, it feels like they're actually quite separate warning signs as opposed to something that could be solved with one.
Yeah.
A question on that then around sort of data and measurement. I know we're going to go into that a little bit more later on, but do you have any sort of data or numbers around sort of the scale of the issue that some of these operators may be facing?
So yeah, we do have some data that really highlights the scale of the problem. So we do an annual survey of over 350 hospitality operators. 90% told us that their work involves constant coordination with others. So even in modern operations, a lot of time is still spent just aligning people, information, back and forth of communication. And then 70% of respondents said that they are completing more than 50 operational tasks per week. So we are talking about a very high volume, highly fragmented workflow. So when you combine these two signals, it really shows why teams feel stretched. It's not just the number of tasks, it's the coordination overhead that sits on top of them.
Yeah, and 50 tasks does sound like a lot, but admittedly, again, I don't run in a property, but it does seem like a lot. And again, I'm guessing those tasks go beyond the usual housekeeping ones. It's way more than that.
Oh yes, as we said, like I think like a person on first page, they think that operations is just housekeeping and maintenance, but as Dominika said, it involves so much more of the business and daily operations.
Yeah, and the constant coordination, I guess, is the other call out, because obviously you expect coordination, but this is basically a lot of back and forth all the time, which is a lot of flagging. So when you add it all up, it makes a lot. It's not very rewarding to always be doing the same thing all the time.
Yeah.
So I guess we can sort of cover sort of like what happened when you decided to make a switch. Then we'll go back to you, Dominika, around sort of your experience and when you decided to make a switch. So I believe you had RMS as your PMS prior. When you decided to go and look for an operational vendor, what did that evaluation look like at the time? What did you consider?
So for us, basically, the major deciding factor was when we realized that the growth within our organization has started to expose the limitation of manual processes, right? We already had RMS and at our PMS. So at the starting point, we actually started there, right? So we weren't looking at anything to replace it. We were looking at something to build around it, right? The key question was that what does integrate well with RMS and allows us to automate the operations in a scalable way. So that's what led us to look for a very strong operational partner rather than just another standalone tool, right? The major factor was like how well do they integrate together, right? So in terms of evaluation, we focused heavily on integrational capabilities, automation, how they support the daily operations, and also the full life cycle. So including, as I said, the operations, the inspections, the maintenance, and the whole coordination between all the teams, right? Because we have a quite large organization and multiple teams that are usually working in silos. That's something that can bring them together, right? So, and then when we are looking at the broader stack, we already so we were trying to build an ecosystem rather than disconnected tools, and basically RMS sits in the center of it, of the reservations and the like a property data, and Breezeway supports the operations and the workflow automations, and then we layer it with reservations tools and marketing platforms and CRM systems around it. So it's just team has a proper structure perspective, which is very important. So it's very clear for everybody, right? So we don't need to chase information from reservations. Operations doesn't need to change information from reservations. Also, procurement doesn't need to chase information and manually coordinate across multiple departments. Everything just flows within the system. Yeah.
Actually, I think it would be useful for us. Would you be able to walk us through like kind of your team setup? Like what teams do you have? Just to try and get an idea of the scale of Nox and how many teams you you're responding to basically with this software?
We have quite a good setup within Nox. So we have a full operations team. We have a revenue and sales team, reservations team, procurement and finance, and admin. These are the supporting functions. So we always try to connect them, all of them together, right? So we are not sending just a task from reservations to operations, right? What usually people would think so, but we are sending from reservations to onboarding team to procurement team to finance team, right? So it flows, and then basically to management for approvals, right? So I can give approvals within the system. So this is how deep you can use the system within the organization. You don't even need to send each other messages. You can just send each other tasks, basically on the whole onboarding flow, on everything. So it's a rather large scale operations within our organization, and we just all try to connect within the platform.
Okay, brilliant. And I guess follow-up question, and then we'll go back to you, Maria. I've got more question for you, but one more question, Dominika, before we move on. But what does the rest of your tech stack look like? So obviously we know RMS as your PMS. You say it's kind of the center of command, or however we call it. What else have you got, without necessarily naming names, but just to try and get an understanding of how complex your tech stack may be?
So, well, as I said, like we have the center, which is our property management system, which is RMS. Then we connect it with our operations tool, and then we also layer it with the marketing platforms and a major financial system as well, right? Where all our data flows, and where we create our reports and all our financial operations within that system. Of course, it can integrate also with the CRM. So it's a rather and a large tech stack, to be honest, but everything integrates. And the major factor was that everything needs to flow really easily. Information needs to be pushed from one to second, third, and fourth one. This was the most important key factor when deciding of what tools are we onboarding, right? So that's very important.
Perfect, thank you. We'll go back to this idea of the one ecosystem, which is something we feel quite passionately about at RMS. But in the meantime, Maria, so based on your experience, what are some of the numbers of some of the benefits that operators can see off the back of implementing a software like Breezeway? Do you have any sort of stats on time saved or whatever? I think we've got some. I think we're going to the stats after, but we've got some visibility around what good looks like here.
Yeah. So as Dominika said, like the aim is to create one ecosystem. So it doesn't matter if you have like great tools that are not integrated with each other, because like you're gonna fall into these information silos again. So when you connect RMS with Breezeway, the biggest shift is that nothing needs to be manually chased anymore. So it starts with the booking. As soon as it's confirmed in RMS, that information syncs automatically into Breezeway. So from there, cleaning task is instantly created, assigned to the right person, and customized with the correct checklist for that specific property. Then the field team executes everything through a mobile app. They follow up the checklist, upload pictures, report any issues, and confirm completion in real time. And once that is done, the property status updates. So managers can instantly see the unit is ready. So instead of coordinating every single step, the team is just really overseeing the operations.
Okay, that sounds perfect. And I think we have you. I think these are your stats, right, Dominika? Some of the benefits that you've seen off the back of the adoption.
Yeah, these are we have done a case study with Breezeway a couple of months ago of how we utilized the tool and what basically how it helped us within our organization. And I would say that the first thing that the team notices these days, it's is the clarity, right? Clarity of exactly what your day is going to look like. Of course, we have some ad hoc tasks that happen during the day, right? It's a very dynamic operation, but you don't need to chase information anymore from one department and second department. Everything is within the system in a very structured way, which is assigned, is tracked, and it's also automatically created within the system, which is very important, right? So you don't need to do a lot of manual processes, which is extremely important for our very busy operation. And it's very less back and forth. It's more of a and then you have more room for errors. With everything is just within the system.
Yeah, definitely. And I see here 6,000 tasks a month. Then definitely it goes.
We have way more now, right? Because
right.
when we did this case study, we were still in a midway of using it, and then now we have really started utilizing the tool in a very deeper layers, as I said, across so many different departments, because they just all have to connect and flow with each other. That's very important.
So you think that number is even under evaluated?
Definitely. And if we look at it today, that's definitely. But again, I would go back to one thing I always say. It's the system is as good as you feed it with data, right? If you use it and utilize it properly, you will have much better results, right? So there is the key, and that's actually the key of how to utilize the systems. It's very, very important. Yeah.
That's true. And actually, we have a question on that. We'll get to it at the end. But around, I guess a lot of it is down to how well you implement it, how well you onboard, and what you feed into it. So, but before we go into that, I guess for my knowledge, I guess I wanted to find out from you, Dominika, if you could walk us through what a turnover looks like now end to end once you have Breezeway and RMS sort of connected. If you could walk us through that sort of workflow, that sort of in practice workflow.
Yeah. So the turnover becomes a fully structured workflow rather than a manual coordination exercise, right? So booking data flows from RMS, and Breezeway automatically triggers cleaning, inspection, maintenance tasks based on the checkout and check-in times, right? So then basically the team receives clear instructions like timelines and checklists, and the most important, the management has a full visibility in real time what's happening on a daily basis, what's happening during the day within the operation. So instead of me as a manager asking like, have this unit have been cleaned, is this task done, has this maintenance task been finished, everything is already there, so you already know, right? If they fill it, of course. You need to fill it with the information, right? But so basically it's that kind of visibility which is very important from my perspective, and that also removes that pressure, and it also allows the team to work very more confidently, and also with a clear structure of what's going to happen within today.
Yeah, and I guess it's probably quite welcome, because obviously hospitality isn't known for being an industry where every day is the same. On the contrary, like you get different clients, different things, different requests, different political environment, everything, and you're based in Dubai, so everything is changing. You got to be ready for anything pretty much. So I guess it's probably good to be able to offer sort of a controlled environment for the things that you can control.
Indeed.
Yeah. I think we have a quick audience question coming up. Let me see if I can get it going. If I can I? Yes. So we wanted to, same again, it's at the top with the little lightning bolt. We wanted to find out whether, out of all these options, housekeeping and maintenance, inspection, procurement, owner communications and approval, and reporting, whether you thought there was anything that Breezeway could not help you with. And then Maria will talk about the one that people think that we can't can't be helped. So we've got reporting and owner communications and approvals. I don't know whether, Maria, you want to talk about that.
Yes, I'd love to. So believe it or not, Breezeway does more than just like maintenance, inspections or cleaning, as we've talked about. Also like owner communication and approval. So work that requires approval can be surfaced and shared with owners in a structured way, reducing back and forth and speeding up decisions. So again, we want to cut down on as much as manual work that is involved in the daily operations, as well as reporting. We're feeding the system with so much data that you can get real-time dashboards on readiness, performance, cost. So instead of building reports manually, you always have a clear view of operations. And then, of course, like you'll be able to download all that information for your own systems.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And then we're going to get sort of back to you, Dominika, in terms of, we talk a little bit about portfolio growth when you add properties. So, and then you talked a lot around systems that scale with you rather than against you. So what tends to break first? What do you see when you grow? What tends to sort of be an issue?
So what as you scale, so the first thing that actually breaks is visibility and control. So right, so but beyond that, the coordination between the department becomes a challenge, right? You have so many tasks to navigate during the day-to-day operation, and everything starts to disconnect if it's not structured properly. But more importantly, what really starts to break is the coordination between functions, right? That's the most important. And basically, it's like, for example, managing multiple stock levels across multiple properties, the lost and found, the tracking of the items in storage, and then coordination between the procurement department and operations department, and all of this. This becomes very difficult to control manually, right? So that's why you need to have a system. So having everything within one ecosystem, as I call it, allows you to maintain the oversight and scale without adding complexity to it, right? So it ensures that operations grows in a structured way rather than becoming harder to manage with every unit you add to your portfolio. That's where I see. So it shouldn't be operationally harder. You should make it more predictable, right? So with every unit, you already know what you have to do. So that's very important. And I spoke with ladies from Breezeway before, and I said one thing: I would not wait to add these tools within already something that's already breaking, right? I would introduce these tools early on without reaching to the point where the team already creates the resistance because you are introducing a new tool, right? When there is already a process in place, either it is broken or not broken, we don't know, but it already you have some bad habits, right? So adding a new system can create a bit of a resistance from the team unless they realize that this system works not against them, but with them. It creates clarity for them. So I would introduce these tools early on, where the team can learn how to utilize it, learns how to feed it with data. You as a management have a clear data, and you can scale properly and in a very structured way. This is where usually our operations break at some point.
Yeah, that's actually a great question, which I meant to ask and didn't. But what was your team's reaction to when you introduced Breezeway? What did they say? Oh, great, yet another tool, or
again another tool she comes up with. No. I love tools, right? I'm a big fan of automation, and I'm really big fan of IT and AI. But initially, of course, there was a resistance from the team, because of course that's very natural, right? Because you want something, for them to learn new and, break their habits, right? So, and team was used to working with WhatsApp group messages, floating back and forth, and very informal processes rather than formal processes within the system. So, so moving into a structured platform was quite of an adjustment. And so, but they quickly realized that, and they started to feel the impact, right? There is so much more clarity. And so once they understood that the tasks were assigned clearly, the expectations was defined, and they didn't have to do the constant follow-ups between the departments and double checking information. So it became way more easier, the day-to-day rush, right? So it reduced stress and and a lot of high pressure moments during our turnover. I think that's something that definitely gave a bit of a space, and allowed a lot of less room for errors during your rush timings. We have that window that's when there are all the checkouts and check-in at the very span of few hours, and that's basically that the instructions are clear, how to do, you have the checklist, you have your tasks. So definitely it allowed them to function as an operation much better.
Right. So a bit of resistance at first, and then they quickly.
Always.
Always. Yeah, you're right. That should never be underestimated. It's kind of, there's always any company, any staff, always a bit of a resistance to change. Like you said earlier, maybe some bad habits have been adopted, and it's trying to pull away from that. It's never easy. So
never easy. And you need to make sure they are consistent, right? This is a very important thing. The team has to be very consistent with feeding the system with data, and closing the task and everything. And then when you have a very good reports which the system supports you with, right? But if you don't feed it with data, as I said, it's going to be as good as you feed it with data. So that's up to your operations to manage it, how well the system performs for you.
Exactly. And I think it plays, so what you were describing earlier, so you grow and then things start to break and things don't go quite as planned, leads on to sort of the operational maturity of a property, how advanced you are on your operational side or not. Maria, I think Breezeway has a framework to assess operational maturity. We'll go into that. Can you walk us through? There it is. Can you walk us through what you see at your end on the property operation model?
Yeah, absolutely. So at a high level, we see 4 stages of operational maturity. So first one being reactive, teams are firefighting, tasks are last minute, communication is scattered, and issues show up at check-in. Then we move to the coordinated, where there is a shared system, but it's still very manual. There is no ecosystem yet. So people are chasing cleaners, double checking readiness, and building reports by hand. Then we go to the automated, so reservations data drives everything. So bookings trigger task, teams are auto-notified, and you get real-time visibility into property readiness. And this goes really tied together with the finally scalable. That's where top operators land. So your cost per turn, onboarding is fast, reporting is automated, and you can grow the portfolio without growing the team at the same pace. So it's really a progression from reacting to actually building for a scale.
Can you get to scalable without software, do you reckon? Have you seen it done? Obviously, you work for Breezeway, I'm assuming not, but still would be interesting. It would be difficult to do it.
I think you can operate your 5 units and stay that way without having bigger headaches. But if your aim is scaling, you need something to support that scale.
Yeah, that is fair. And because we've got operators on the call, we're gonna ask you guys if you can assess yourself. So I'll go back to the slide above, but we have one last interaction. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. Start. There we go. So again, at the top with the lightning bolt. So I'll go back to it. This is so stage 1 is reactive, stage 2 is coordinated, stage 3 is automated, and stage 4 is scalable. So where do you see yourself at today? Go back. And I think people are mostly stage 1, which I guess is probably not a surprise given where we are together today. So that makes sense. So I think we're near the end of our presentation. We've got some questions at the end, but wanted to close off with sort of a final piece of advice. I'm going to start with you, Dominika, again. So someone who is starting today is recognize themselves as the sort of stage 1, very baby steps in the operationalization of, that's just never a word I can say, operationalization of operation. Should not work for Breezeway, I wouldn't be able to say it. What one practical step that they could take this week? What's one thing they could do to help?
Okay, so I think that the first step is actually very simple. Map your current operation. Okay, so look how your booking flows from reservations to checkout. Okay, and including the housekeeping, the inspections, the maintenance, everything, right? Slice it out, right? And once you see this clearly, you will immediately identify where the time is being lost and where the errors happen, right? So I think beyond just the daily operations, you can look at how you manage inventory, how you manage the procurement, how you manage the owner's approvals, and just the overall coordination of tasks within the departments. So, and I also suggest don't try to change everything overnight, right? Structure it, open it up, see how everything flows, and where and how you can introduce these tools into your operations, right? So it's basically just creating the right foundations and as early on as possible, right? And that allows you then to scale with confidence without breaking the and having the chaos and breaking the foundations of what you have built already.
Yeah, these are great, a great tip. And then same question to you, Maria. What do you think people should do?
Yeah, so I think I'm 100% with Dominika. So I would say write down every single step that you do at your operations, especially note where you're relying on messages, memory, or someone having to chase information. Then take it one step further. So pick one of those moments and standardize it this week. As Dominika said, don't try to do everything at once. Pick one of those. So for example, instead of messaging cleaners every time, create a single task list or a schedule that everyone refers to. So you don't need to fix everything at once. The goal is to remove just one piece of chaos, and that usually gets the momentum going.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. So we've got a few questions. We go into that, and then we'll let you guys enjoy the rest of your hopefully sunny days. So question around the integration and setup process. I don't know if you can walk us through your experience, Dominika, and then maybe Maria just walk us through like the top level, so like how do you normally work? So obviously you should start with your PMS, whoever you've got, hopefully RMS, but yes.
Ideally.
It's
a question for me, right?
I'll ask you first, and then Maria can complement as well.
Well, as I said, the RMS is the center of it, and then you connect the tool, right? The integration was very straightforward. You need to make sure that these tools communicate to each other. They have open APIs both ways, so they can pull and push information. And it was a very straightforward task, to be honest. Yes, we had to build up certain units and modules, etc., within the system, but it just integrated well. There was a little bit of a learning from the beginning, and of course we had to go through. We wanted some task and we deep dive into it, how to go. If something was not straightforward, we created a workaround. So everything can be done with a bit of a patience. And I think we are a great example because we are quite a demanding client. So, so both sides, I think they know me quite well. So
I will not comment. I'm in marketing. I don't know anything.
So we are quite a demanding client because we like that structure. We like the automation, or I am the demanding client. I don't know. So and it was, both teams were very good. They communicate easily. Then once you have your setup, everything just flows. Yeah. Yes, of course, there is a bit of a manual work involved into setting up certain things, but once that's done, just a one-time task, and then the door is open. You can just work with the systems as you please. So it's very easy. I wouldn't think it's necessarily a gigantic task.
Okay, brilliant. That's what we want to hear. Maria, do you have any sort of more color to add around the implementation process? What's asked of the client?
So given that the integration is already built, like with the API, as Dominika mentioned, like when it comes to a purely integration, it's like a matter of clicks. Then whenever it comes to setting up the process, of course, it depends on the number of properties you manage and how much information you want to fit into the system. Let's be honest, this is not going to be okay. I want to put an operations platform and everything is magic. Of course, like we need information in order to do all that automation. But on average, our clients take between 2 to 4 weeks to set up everything and be up and running.
That's pretty quick. Mm-hmm. Is the information or the sync real time or is it delayed? I think you mentioned, Dominika, that it was real time, but yes. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes. It's basically everything is usually, then you automate everything, right? Because the bookings, they flow automatically to Breezeway from RMS. You have set your rules and triggers, etc. So everything just really flows easily and automatically. I think it's a matter of a couple of seconds when the trigger is being pushed to Breezeway. Of course, that's not necessarily like in a second, but it's within just a couple of seconds when everything is being pushed, all the information. So yes, it syncs on a kind of a real-time basis. Everything is visible, everything is clear. And what is most important for me, you have a data bank. All the tasks and everything is stored within the system, which is fantastic. Even if you don't manage the unit anymore, the data for that property will be still there. If someone comes back in 2 years' time and asks you, well, when I handed over this unit, I received broken this. But if you put and structure everything within the system, you have your proofs and photos and everything, you have everything within the system, within the click. Otherwise, if you run on manual processes, you will need to go and dig out some data from years ago, which most likely you lost. So this is why I think that having the systems is extremely important. It's just also for having and store your data.
Yeah, that's true, and that data that's worth its weight in gold always, right? When you have it, and without a system like this, obviously no data, everything is in people's minds. So yeah, it's nothing like
where you're gonna have, like, usually people are changing within the organizations, data get lost and spreadsheets get lost sometimes if you don't store it properly. And this is what I like about system. This is why I'm a big fan of system. If you feed it with data, all of your data will be within that system, right? And so whenever you need to pull out some data, everything is there. And whenever it comes to a dispute between the owner or the tenant is complaining about the apartment wasn't cleaned well, what we do, we go to the task which was assigned to the cleaning team. You can check the photos, you understand, you have the proof. If someone is asking for a refund, I think this is where the value lies as well.
Yeah. And there is I guess when you manage properties on behalf of owners, there must be a bit of that. So at least you get it all available and there's no dispute.
That's why everything in terms of onboarding and offboarding the properties as well is stored within the system, right? You have all the checklists, what is in the apartment. We send our inspection reports to the landlords through Breezeway, for example. You don't need to do your Excel sheet, attaching photos, etc. We basically set everything within the system, and you can send it to the landlord. You will have your data as well, what was handed over to you. And when we were handing over to the landlord, you can have a inspection when you were when we were onboarding the property and when we were offboarding the property, and you can compare this data and an actual condition of the unit. So that's very important. So this is how far you can go with the right tool.
Yeah, exactly. A question, maybe I don't know who can answer, maybe you, Maria, or maybe you, Dominika, whether Breezeway support things like safety inspection and compliance requirements. I'm guessing so, given that they can be tasks.
Yeah, 100%. And also, like, this is one of the use cases that is more and more often. So, like, you have to do yearly compliance. You can document everything. You can upload the certificates. You have the reminders. When do they expire? When do you have to do them next? So you make sure that everything is in one system, so you don't run the risk of forgetting it, delaying it, or losing all that information from previous inspections that you have done. As well as with all the checklists, like, in one inspection exactly what needs to be checked, how should it look like, if there is anything that needs to be reported within the same checklist that you're using. So also, like, is saving your team's time whenever they have everything in one single place.
Brilliant. Thank you. In your experience, I'll ask Dominika, given that you're a user, since Breezeway receives data from RMS, can it also push data into RMS? And if so, what data can Breezeway update within RMS? I feel I should be able to know that, and I do not.
I think it's a good question for you.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, no, it's probably a question for me, and I don't have the answer. So do you know? Otherwise, I will go and find out.
Well, depends what data you want to push to RMS, really, because I think what's the most important is that RMS pushes to Breezeway, right? And then you could push, because it's basically two ways API, so you can push back the data. It depends what data you want to push back. If there is any context, we can maybe answer to that, because if there is a two ways open APIs, it always works both ways. If, of course, one system can accommodate it, depending on what data you want to push back.
It was around the clean status for a room. So when the room's been clean, it's marked as clean. Does that get pushed back into RMS for maybe the front?
Yes, you can to change the status of that, but you still need to manually change the status of the check-in of the guest, etc. So that's still something that you need to do within your PMS environment.
Right. Yes, that's fair enough. Great. And then a final question for you, Maria, whether Breezeway offer text or learning video resources for staff. So when you are obviously have a new property that you want to onboard, you have like a university.
100%. So yeah, so we have a library with lots of documentation, with blogs, with videos, and not only that, we also have our support team working 7 days a week, as well as while you're onboarding Breezeway, you're going to be together with someone from our team that is going to help you setting up your account. So you will have like live training sessions for you, pretty much.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. That's all we've got time for today. But thank you, Maria, for joining us from Breezeway, and obviously thanks to you, Dominika, from both of us for joining us, and telling us your real life experience in Breezeway and RMS. It's been so good having you on the Learning Labs today. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Also, all female panel, so I'm here for that.
We like that.
We like more of that, please. So yeah, it's been great having you. Thank you so much. And if there is, I think there was one more slide. I think if there is any questions around sort of Breezeway or RMS, you know where to find us. There is a QR code here that you can scan if you need it. And then, yes, thanks for joining us to everyone on the phone or on their laptop. We will be back next month with a session on payments. So thank you once again, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here, ladies. Take care. Bye-bye.